you all once again for being with us here today. So, to begin our panel discussion, the first question is, do you think students should fear AI or consider it as a friend? Mr. Kitchen, could you please start us off?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's something we've all touched on. I think there's a tremendous advantage for students that once they high school and perhaps look to go on and go to university and go into the workplace and be the people that understand AI, because I think people that are currently in the workplace are probably fearful about it. And I think there might be an opportunity for a lot of students. Obviously, each industry is slightly different, but to be the student, I remember doing it 15 years ago. People would ask the same question about social media. And whoever was the intern that had suddenly come out of university that knew how to do social media was suddenly escalated up to have a senior role. So I think there might be that opportunity for students to embrace.
Thank you. Do any of the other panelists have something to say?
I think that AI, especially in filmmaking, aids it so much because you can now create decks of how the world can be seen and how the world can be conveyed to producers, to people who might be your funders or collaborators through Midjourney and Discord, as well as ChatGPT, because now they also generate not only images, but also tells you about how the industry might perceive it. You can ask it to be an expert and give you an expert opinion about your script, your work, your LinkedIn profile, your Instagram, how to be more visible. So I think that AI is increasingly becoming something as a tool for us to expand, and not only that, but to sell our projects and showcase what we can do, even if we don't have the funds or the capacity to do it right now.
Yeah, just to add to that a little bit, for anyone who's interested in pursuing a career in the film industry, film is a very dynamic, technology-driven medium. So we can't do what we do without technology. And so we have to keep adapting to whatever, the changing times are bringing us. So we can't avoid AI, and we definitely have to find a way to implement it where it can really go above and beyond human capacity. Mm-hmm. But what I would encourage people to do is to identify where it works and where it can hurt a little bit. So I definitely think, like Lachlan said in his summit, people still really love stories and storytelling. And stories are born from people, and they're born from experiences. So don't use AI. Don't be so dependent on AI for creative work. Try to create independently and individually and authentically, because that's what gives you an edge. And one of the things that I encourage writers to do, I actually learned about this very recently. If you write a story or a pitch or a screenplay or whatever it is, there is a way for you to ChatGPT proof it, where if I'm a writer and I'm submitting it to a studio executive for feedback, if I'm a studio executive, I have to give feedback on like 8 things today. So I may be inclined to just plug it into AI and say, in the voice of Aaron Sorkin, celebrated screenwriter, give me feedback on this pitch. I'm a bit of a purist. I think that's a little bit of cheating. And so what I tell writers to do is put your work through this little programming where when that executive puts that script gives it into AI, AI will get confused by it. And so character names will change and things will change and the plot will change and the executive might get a bit exposed. So use AI where it can really, really boost the work. And then for things that are more creative and personal and story-driven, veer away from it is my advice.
Thank you. That was really insightful. Just pushing off of that, the next question is, leading in a fast-changing world, how should we stay agile and inspire others? Anyone?
I think it comes down to mindset, really. I think that we all come in creative fields, and I think that certainly in my experience, I learned when I was managing my first radio station that when you're dealing with creative people, they have this ability to conjure up ideas, songs, comedy lines or whatever that never existed before. But then they also have this other problem that they overthink things and they conjure up situations that don't exist. It's that balance of the creative mind. And I think in any field, it's about your internal dialogue and those simplistic lines, and we hear them, and I heard them at school and didn't think they really mattered, but it's always about understanding you and understanding who you are to keep that mindset and keeping that focus, I think is what's key from my experience.
Thank you. Anyone else have something to say about the question?
Go ahead. I agree with Lachlan entirely. Yeah, I think your mindset, to be open to being taken on a journey, I think. And the more set we are in certain ways, I mean, it can help give us a feeling of safety and confidence that we know this. But really, to truly evolve yourself is to just be open and to be open to absorb and listen and hear and pivot. Yeah, I think that'll always help you in any field is, retain what is important to you, but be open to somebody coming in and showing you something that is really meaningful to them, and be open and be empathetic and be adaptive.
I want to add that be open to criticism and be open, and even if you do not agree, receive it in a nice way, because those are people's opinions that actually matter, especially because when you're putting a film out there, it's not your opinion that matters then, it's the audience's opinion, and everyone has their own journey with your film. So the way it's received is not up to you, it's up to the audience. So being open to that and taking it gracefully is such a important thing, especially in industries where your creativity is always judged. But also take opportunities when it comes to you, because if you say no to something that might, just because of you might be worried of you might succeed in it or you might fail, I think always take opportunities as they come to you, because at some point you want those opportunities and they might not come to you by then. So always be open to new opportunities, be open to new collaborations, and be open to other people's thoughts and opinions regarding your work or asking you to regard theirs. And be gentle with your criticism back too, because you might actually crush someone's hopes and dreams if you were too severe with your critique.
So adding to that, as you mentioned, there's an art. Constructive criticism is the one key thing that's going to develop you and enhance your abilities. And it's really important for people to be able to give and receive constructive criticism. It's only going to better your craft. It's only going to improve your mindset. And it's only going to help you also grow within a team and grow in your work. So from my side, I think that's very critical. There's something in conservation, there's a concept called adaptability or resilience. And when we talk about certain species, how climate resilient they are and how adaptable they are, as humans, we need to be the same way, right? So this is the lesson I can offer.
That's amazing, thank you. And on the topic of AI, with the rising concern that it might be, taking over jobs, what are some future-proof skills? So what are something that all students need to learn?
I think it's like what we touched on is that you've got to understand that the technology is always going to change. I think there's a famous photo of somewhere in New York City where it was just horse and carriage in about 1905, and by 1915 it was just full of cars. We humans have been through this before, and I don't know if anyone's been in a scenario where WhatsApp's not working or Instagram's not working, and you don't know whether it's your phone or you don't know whether it's your Wi-Fi, and then suddenly everyone's going to X and everyone's posting on X. No, WhatsApp and Instagram are down, and then it's that lesson that, like with AI, you've got to be adaptable to different forms of technology and different mediums. And I think it's about that being able to be agile. That people came out of school 15 years ago and were worried, well, what will social media do? Will it take away our jobs? In radio, we used to think, are Facebook going to take away our jobs? But great radio announcers used it to put their content on there, to grow their audience. So I think it's about that adaptability.
Thank you. Are there any other useful skills that you believe that students should be learning?
I think that don't discard any of the skills that you're learning right now, because no matter how much AI advances, there's always going to be a lack of humanity in that. For example, there was the Ghibli phenomena that everyone was doing Ghibli art through ChatGPT, and how Hayao Miyazaki and his team were kind of upset at that because it took years of hard work and kind of reduced it to a few minutes. But if you notice, the outcomes of that was never on par with Ghibli Studios anyway, because hardship are like the traditional techniques will never lose their art form or their appeal to people. So always, regardless of how much AI is enabling easier outcomes and faster outcomes, always make sure that you know the bases, the premieres, the Avid, like the writing, the use of programs and the updates that comes with it, because no matter what happens, there's always a need for human interaction to be inserted within these projects to have that emotional connection that AI lacks and will still lack even as it advances through the years.
From my side, I think communication and effective, you could say storytelling or writing, or look, at the end of the day, to put together a good prompt in ChatGPT requires effective communication. You need to target, I mean, this is just one example, but that is the key thing that stands across everything. If you can't communicate, then you're not going to be able to present your idea. You're not going to be able to receive ideas back. So effective communication, how to really put your ideas in a form that's cohesive. So you're honing those skills of communication and being able to storytell or write in sequence, and write with an audience perspective in mind is key in anything. I think it stands across all industries.
Thank you so much.
And just to add a little bit, I know this sounds very basic, but keep reading long form. It's really the only way it's one of the most effective ways that you can really, really inform yourself as you move through life. I feel like there's a tendency these days for everything to be summarized in its shortest possible iteration. And I think it's good for a certain kind of efficiency, but I mean, if you try to win a debate or an argument based off of cliff notes, you're going to get exposed really quickly. Yeah. So, I read so much in middle school and high school, and then so much in college academically, that if I'm being very honest, there was a good 10 or 12 years in my life where I stopped reading for me. And I've started to do that again. And reading for me doesn't just mean, reading fiction or whatever, just reading, deep diving into things that I've always wanted to know a little bit more about. It doesn't matter where you access it from, but sometimes you open up an article and it tells you how many minutes it's going to take to read this. Like, this is a 6-minute read, this is a 20-minute read, this is a... I feel like the world is pushing us to just read faster but shorter and then somehow still be smarter and more dynamic, and it doesn't compute for me. Yeah. So as tedious as it may seem right now, just get really good at practicing long form reading. I mean, the way it expands and informs you is you can't compare it.
Not just that, it expands, I think this is, and not just that, I was saying that it expands your understanding of language and vocabulary.
Yes.
Back when I was in high school, the way you studied for SATs was reading. Mm-hmm. Not taking lists and just memorizing, a definition across, a word. The way you studied was reading, so you understood the usage, the nuances of vocabulary, right? So that's another thing with reading that I think is super important to highlight.
Thank you so much for those responses. And the next question we'll be moving on to is when in the workplace, when working with other people, how do you sometimes set boundaries or maybe say no to something?
I mentioned hectic, right? Working at WWF. Look, if you are unable to set boundaries, you'll find out very quickly that you'll get stepped on. And there's going to be a constant expectation of people asking you things and performing, leaps and bounds. And you may have done it once, you may have done it twice, and then the expectation then is there all the time. So this is just one example, but setting boundaries is very important for yourself, for your own mental health and your well-being, as well as setting up expectations for the other party. This is just in a team setting. What I'm talking about. So yeah, that's just my two cents on it.
Yeah, I think also setting boundaries is critical, and it's a constantly evolving thing that you have to work on, which is to say you have to reset boundaries from time to time, because you're changing and what your capacity is shifting and changing, and it's critical. And the entertainment industry it is known to be a little bit exploitative.
Very.
And it's because, as we were mentioning a little bit outside, everybody who's working in the entertainment industry, for the most part, in my experience, are here for passion, and they're here for the love of it. And sometimes you just want to get that opportunity, and you want to be able to prove yourself, and you realize somewhere along the way that, somebody may have just been a bit exploitative with you, and it's very important for you to know your worth, and to be able to draw that line. And I've found that the more you're able to authentically set your boundaries, the more you find your people. You will attract people who think like you and who have similar values and who respect somebody's time.
Exactly.
So boundary setting is a constant, renegotiation. It's not like we've done it once, we've worked together once, we established that boundary, and now that's set, and going forward, that's going to take care of where the line is. The line has to keep being drawn.
Yeah.
So, and it's not easy work, guys. Boundary setting is difficult work in a professional space, and even in your personal life, right? I mean, firstly, how do you know what the limit is for you? You usually learn it the hard way.
Sure.
And so not to be scared of that, and to really see it as a tool that you have to really establish what you want from the thing, what you want from the person, and how you really want to be treated, and also treat people the way you want to be treated. That's really important as you move through life. Always come back to that. How would I feel if I were on the receiving end of this experience?
And talking about it from another angle, from a client angle, you can't say no to them. They're the client is always right. But there is a way to say no to them, and that's from a diplomatic way, which is explaining why this process might increase the budget, might not fit within the timeline, or might become something that might reflect the message in a negative way or a different way. And that's the way of debating and kind of diplomatically talking them into the no without actually saying no. And it's a very interesting maneuver that takes a bit of years and practice to perfect, because some clients do not know the boundaries, and because they're paying you for a project, they think that they own your time. And it's very hard, especially in this industry, especially in the UAE. We don't have a limit to when a client can message us. They can message us till 12 a.m. I had clients messaging me when I was away on holiday, so I was working as I was on days off. And then I even had teammates message me at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning about something that doesn't need to be addressed until I come back to work. So it's all about setting boundaries in a way that the way you interact with them from the get-go is how they will perceive you even down the line. So it's harder to actually place those boundaries after you start engaging with them. So always set your boundaries earlier. If it is a client, be aware that you cannot say no, because you might lose their business forever. And because they can go somewhere else, and that person will say yes to everything they want. So always set your limits, always tell them why, and showcase that your quality of work, you came to them for a quality of work that you are performing, and you will perform it within the time limit and the budget that they're giving. But always try to also sometimes, if it's needed, to try to figure out a solution rather than saying no. So problem solving is a big thing in any management role, in any team role, in any filmmaking role as well. So gear yourself up to having 2 or 3 backup plans if this plan doesn't work out for some reason. And you will face that a lot when you're in your journey through your studies and through work, regardless of any profession you go to.
Yeah, I think you guys are lucky because I wish I'd heard this at 18.
Yes.
It's such a great question about setting boundaries, because when I first started, you're 18 and you're in a radio station and you put your hand up to do every late night, weekend, whatever, because you want to get that experience and get ahead. But where does that line come from? And I think that the more you've had that conversation with yourself and also your bosses about how to say no, you get better at saying no. And in a strange way, like you touched on, people do start to respect you a bit more. If your time is a bit more valuable, they then will respect that, oh, no, he has got a life or she has got a life and she's got other things to work on. So it's, it's something that we all get better at. And the client one is great. I remember the first time I kind of was working outside radio and doing corporate podcasts, and I was doing quite a serious one with doctors. And the first day there was a doctor who wasn't comfortable speaking into the microphone, just said to me, no, it's okay, I'll sit back here, the microphone will pick me up. And I was like, well, no, it won't. And he was like, yes, it will. And how do you say no? And I had to say, look, I'm very sorry, doctor, I don't come into your surgery and tell you how to operate. So I'd appreciate if you would, He's like, oh, okay. They give you the raised eyebrow. So those conversations just, you get better at having them as the journey goes on.
Thank you. Yeah, I do think that this is kind of like an untalked about topic sometimes. But then on the other hand, like on the other side of the coin, what is leadership to you? Do you think it's about being in charge? Do you think about taking charge, and kind of how's the best way to go about being in a leadership role?
That's, sorry.
Go ahead.
Leadership is a big responsibility for everyone, because being a leader is being able to identify what your team needs, and sometimes is just an ear to hear you. Sometimes it's just being there for them in the hardest. Being on set, what I learned was there are so much things that happen behind the scene. You would think that a director or producer has the hardest role, but they're not. There are teams there that are working way harder than you to make your vision come true, because they trust your leadership skills, they trust your vision, and they're there to make sure that your vision comes true. But with that, sometimes they also, as a team, for me, my crew is my life. They're my family. And I look out for my crew in the sense that if someone is abusing authority on set, I do put a stop on it, because I don't care if you are my boss. I don't care if you are the VP. You do not treat people badly, regardless of which position or which experience. If they mess up, they mess up, but that's human nature. I mess up. So basically, when you're a leader, you need to make sure that your family, basically your crew, your team, are taken care of, because if they are not taken care of, they cannot perform. And so your work gets crushed and won't meet the expectations that you had, because your team is either overworked, emotionally troubled, or do not have assistance that they need. So you need to always be aware of what they need. They need to always hear them. They need to also make sure that they're involved in the creation of your project. As we said before, that collaboration is everything. And basically, everyone has an input in things. Sometimes they have a better idea than you even imagined, and you need to be able to say, you know what, that's right, let's do that. And sometimes it's about, okay, let's do mine and let's do yours. At least we have both of them. So that's a compromise that you can also do if you still think that your route is right. At least listen and make sure that theirs, because later down you might actually choose their idea before. So always, as a leader, be open to those ideas, be open to also stepping out of your comfort zone, because it's not just about making a project happen and you have to deliver. It's also making sure that the team is taken care of, their mindset. You're responsible for that. You're responsible for every single person in your crew. And if you're going to filmmaking, or you're going to a management kind of position, you need to know that you have a lot of people under you that are not only looking up to you for guidance, but also you are responsible. As any family, the head of the family is responsible for the welfare being of their children, of their parents, of their everything. You're also responsible for them, because what happens at work affects them more than what happens outside of work. So you are the first person that can affect and make change, or can actually ruin a whole experience as well.
I agree with so much of what you've said. And just to add on to that, I think one of my leadership styles is really, I look for two things. One is I want to hire people who are infinitely smarter than me.
I was just going to say that, yes.
And you got to have a conversation with your ego then when that happens.
Yeah.
But trust in that. I love to hire people who I believe are just infinitely smarter than me in so many other aspects, because I'm hungry to extract every day and learn. And also, it's helpful for me when I'm looking or when I'm considering applications is somebody who actually just has some, whether it's through athletics or sports or just team experience, because I'm not interested in engaging with people who are just interested in being the superstar of the show. The team is the superstar. What we do together is more powerful than what anybody can contribute individually. So this is something that I learned from some of my mentors. I've been very lucky. I've had amazing mentors in my life, very secure people who were really happy to say, look, I don't know this as well as you do, even though I have more experience. I feel like instinctively you have the right thought behind this, and so then I'm going to kind of entrust you and give you agency to then conduct the project or operations in a way that I think we could all benefit from or learn from. So to not be insecure as a leader, I think, is a very difficult thing to do. But really, I mean, identify people who bring something to the table, and then if you've hired somebody for something about them that speaks to you or impresses you, then go with that, run with it. It doesn't make any sense to hire somebody super smart and then second guess them every step of the way, because that just creates unnecessary friction and tension. So. Trust me, you will always benefit from having a group of people around you who are working with you, alongside of you, who you just know are super smart and are here to learn, but are also here to just keep pouring in and boosting up the team. It always makes for a stronger team.
Yeah. To add on, because the points were already said, but going back to the question, leadership requires taking charge, but the key, in my opinion, is to lead with empathy and through using emotional intelligence. You have to be very switched on to your team members, their needs, their wants, their weaknesses, their strengths. And as she mentioned, as Malika mentioned, hire people that are better than you in the sense that, they're better in their scope of work. So what do we call those people? Subject matter experts, right? You may not be, as leading the team, the best at every single thing, but you've got your go-to person for your, let's say in my situation, your digital marketing expert, your digital transformation expert. So subject matter experts are going to be, they're going to be smarter than you. They're going to know more because they're experts in that particular area. And that doesn't take away from your leadership or your strength in keeping that team together or building them up and mentoring them as a leader, right? So using those ideas of empathy, emotional intelligence, being, discerning what they need, what they don't need, what's good and what's not good for the group is important.
Yeah, I think that, like everyone said, I think that great leaders have got a vision. They know where the business or where it's going, and they know when to lead and perhaps when to support. Best example I can give is like a football coach. You might have a vision for a side, but then he knows how to handle each person individually to get the best out of them. Yeah. Someone might need a bit of love. Someone might need a bit of discipline. But they're doing that individually to get the best out of them and get the best out of the team. Maybe I'll give you an example of bad leaders. That I was working for one radio station, and if you can think like a football club, a good football club will have pictures of the team and it will have pictures of all the trophies they've won and awards and respect, accolade. I worked at one radio, I'm whispering as if he's in the room. I'm working at one radio station, and the owner was more obsessed about having photos of him in the foyer with all the celebrities that we'd had through the station, as opposed to the announcers and the achievements and the #1 ratings. And you can kind of get a sense then when you walk in going, what is the focus here? So sometimes being a good leader is about learning all the things from bad leaders that you may have experienced and not doing those.
That's like red flag energy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was a great session. It's been truly enriching to hear from all of you. And before we move on to the closing ceremony, we'd love to take a moment to hear from our audience. So if you have any questions for the panelists, could you please raise your hand and we'll get a microphone over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, turn the lights on.
Yeah.
Want to be able to see the audience.
Hi, my name is Krish. This question is for all of you guys because I think it's highly applicable to your experiences and professions, and that is being in Dubai, where we have such a culturally diverse set of backgrounds that make up the population. When it comes to producing or structuring, the outcomes of your work, how do you, execute that such that it stays fresh and it's able to engage everyone such that it's accessible, it's interpretable and enjoyable or benefiting everyone. Everyone of being a diverse range of set of audience, having a diverse audience.
Yeah. I think the field that I work in specifically, everybody's trying to create as broadly as possible, right? Like you use the right word with accessibility, make something accessible and also engaging and also. And so I think for me, the key that I've identified is the people that we choose to work with to create these things, right? Like you've got to have a really diverse set of people who are bringing to the table their own experiences, their own tastes. And if you're trying to create for everybody, but you're doing it in a very myopic way, it's not going to really land, So I think one of the things that we do is we really just look to hire creators who come from everywhere and have all kinds of experiences, and somewhere it's going to reach somebody. It's very difficult to make things that everybody likes, right? And sometimes there's something really special about doing something very specific and speaking to a subculture, because subcultures need to be represented too. And sometimes we run the risk of diluting something because we want it to be appealing to everybody, and somewhere along the way we didn't do enough to really explore the thing that we were trying to explore, whether it's a theme or an issue or a culture or a subculture. So for me, the solution really is to be as diverse as possible in our enabling choices and who we're enabling to really put the word out there. And, just be open to knowing what's tracking, like what are people into, what's trending, why is it trending, what is it filling, be a little bit of a psychologist as well. We're all, we're dealing with people all the time. Cinema is an empathy machine, and that means that it's driven by humans. Yeah. And so the more you really see people for their humanity, for their experiences, for their pain and for their joy, and never to condescend to it, and never to undermine it. One of the things we're struggling with in the world, and it's one of the reasons why I'm so excited to be here, is, everybody wants to create for young adults, but sometimes it's like 40, 50, 60-year-olds trying to understand what young adults want. Get a bunch of young adults in the room, they'll tell you what they want. Mm-hmm. And that's a great jumping off point. So yeah, that's how I approach it.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for those thoughtful questions. Once again, a big thank you to our panelists for sharing their insights with us today. And now, to officially close our event, I'd like to invite Mr. Rickford to the stage. And can I please also invite all of the MCs and speakers that we had earlier on.
Speakers are going to come on. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what a show. This is our inaugural Think and Thrive Summit, and I think you would all agree it's been an absolute cracker. So let's start with a big round of applause for the event as a whole.
Good job, guys.
I'm going to say a few thank yous. I'll come to our amazing panel in a minute. First of all, shows like this, events like this don't happen by accident. So some of the important things behind the scenes, and I will surely forget someone, but you know who you are. So accept that we're thanking you too if you're behind the scenes. But certainly putting on a show like this means putting together an amazing panel of presenters. So I want to sort of pay tribute at this point, particularly to Sonia Joy, our marketing manager here, and her team, Pratik and Alwyn and Aravind, who are also standing here shooting it for posterity as well. So first of all, thank you to them, and Sonia, great show, a lot of work behind the scenes on that. And then, of course, our amazing MCs and moderators who have been supported also by their teachers, Miss Holden, Miss Tuvia, Miss Nagel, and others. So well done to you, just such poise. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Now, thinking about this show, this event as a whole, finding a panel like this is no easy thing. We know that you've got huge talent, that goes without saying, but actually the interesting thing today is it wasn't the talent, it wasn't the technical skill that I tuned into, it was actually more to do with how relatable you are. That you're very honest and open and gave so much to this audience. So I want to say thank you to all four of you, first of all, for being so open, so relatable, and giving us so much insight. So thank you to you as a four. And the last thing really is, I'm a man who likes metaphors. So my metaphor today for Think and Thrive is a bit like it's a bookshop. Some of you were walking along the high street and came into the bookshop expecting to read something in particular. Some of you were pushed into the bookshop by your friend or your teacher. Either way, you came in perhaps with some ideas in mind about what to expect, and you went to a certain section of the bookshop. Maybe you were the scientist and thought, I'm a bit lost in here because there's media people and filmmakers and such. But actually, you've had an opportunity to wander into a different section and pick up some new ideas, some new insights. And maybe you didn't walk out thinking, I'm now going to make a film. You probably didn't. Some of you might, but some of you didn't. But you've come out with all of these different insights. And I always say when I go to a bookshop, I go to a museum, what's that one thing that you've taken away? That one thing. It doesn't have to be hundreds of tips and techniques. It's just one thing you walk away with. If you've walked away with anything today, and I know you have, it'll be something that will be in your mind, it'll live with you for a little time longer. So think about what that thing is, share it with your friends, and we'll come back in a year's time, back into this bookshop, possibly not with the same panel, but with another incredible lineup. So let's give a final well done, thank you so much to all of our panel and our MCs and moderators. But it wouldn't be an event without at least a goodie bag and a nice bouquet of flowers. So if we could, first of all, our first bouquet over here, you might have to hand them over because I've got them hands. First to Maitha. Thank you very much, Maitha. It's been an absolute delight to have you. And Malika.
Thank you.
More to come. There's still more.
Should we get one?
Rasna, thank you so much as well. It's been an absolute joy to have you here. Thank you. And one not to be missed.
Thank you very much.
There we are. Fantastic.
Wow.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I will then bring things to a close now. As I say, it's been an absolute honour and a joy to have you all here today. Thank you, students. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your support today. I think there's one more picture. I will bring this to a close now. Thank you all very much. Thank you.